For the first time ever, I am thrilled to say we have an official sponsor for the Dirt Talk podcast, and that's Ariat. I've worn Ariat boots on every job site I've visited over the years, traveling in them across 5 continents. More importantly, I have yet to find a single project where working folks, unlike me, are not wearing Ariat boots and workwear in every condition imaginable. And there's really good reason for that, and that's because it's phenomenal stuff. And the more I've learned about Ariat and the company, the more I've loved their brand. So with this, Ariat is offering any Dirt Talk listener 10% off their next Ariat order at ariat.com/dirttalk. That's 10% off boots, jeans, and workwear at ariat.com/dirttalk or at the link in this episode's description. With that, let's get to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dirt Talk Podcast Monday edition. It is August. I am back in Nashville. I've canceled a majority of my travel over the next few months to focus on getting caught up on all of our great video work that we've shot over the past few months. Get caught up on the podcast. We've got some crazy good guests coming in over the next few months that I'm really, really excited about. And we're trying to just get back to what we were doing, I think, when we began the podcast, just having fun, talking about real stuff. So today, it's just me, unfortunately for you all, and we're going to talk about mine permitting and development in the United States. I'm very passionate about this subject because I, for better or for worse, have a better understanding of how the world really works than most people. I understand that when I flip the switch, the lights come on. That doesn't just happen by accident. There's not fairies up in the ceiling exciting the light bulbs and making it all happen. It's actually an enormous infrastructure built to do that, and it does it remarkably consistently. If the power's out, that's an anomaly. And so to do that for billions of people around the world consistently is an absolute miracle. But it's not by accident. There's a lot of hardworking people making it a reality, a lot of infrastructure making it a reality, and a lot of resources making it a reality. Not just power, but civilized life in general. Food, water, shelter. We couldn't do any of it without mining. And if you sit here, no matter where you're listening to this, and just think for a moment, look around you. What around me right now came from mining? If you're in a car, the entire car came from mining. The whole road came from mining. If you're at home, the entire house came from mining, except for the maybe the timber for the framing, but everything else, the drywall, concrete foundation, the pipes, the wiring, all that's from mining. If you're in an office or a gym, that building wouldn't exist without mining. The glass, the steel, everything, mining. If you're eating something, that food probably wouldn't exist without mining because we can't really grow food at scale for 8 billion people right now without fertilizer. Fertilizer comes from the ground. There's a saying, if it's not grown, it's mined. I don't like this saying because it completely, for whatever reason, ignores the petroleum industry, which is also a big part of the equation. But everything we have in our world comes from the ground in some form, whether it's trees or oil or rocks. It all comes from the ground. It's not magic. So if we want to continue living the lives we are, which are very comfortable, the most comfortable lives anybody has ever lived in the history of the world, we need more mining. And the United States is one of the most resource-rich countries in the entire world. However, this is a Reuters article that came to my attention titled "The U.S. Mine Development Timeline Second Longest in the World," S&P Global says. So this was from July 18th. It takes an average of nearly 29 years to build a new mine in the United States, the second longest in the world behind only Zambia. hampering Washington's efforts to boost output of lithium, nickel, and other metals for the energy transition. And it's not just the energy transition. People say energy transition. Yeah, if we want to transition energy, yes, we're going to need more materials, but it's for everyday life. It's for life first and foremost that we need to be worried about here. So S&P studied 268 mining projects across the globe from when a metal deposit was first discovered until production began. The report found the development timeline in copper and cobalt-rich Zambia to be the longest in the world at roughly 34 years. This is a huge problem. And yes, it takes substantial time to spool up and develop a mine. So there's exploration where companies are going out there and, for lack of a better term, poking a bunch of holes in the ground, testing what they found within each one of those holes, and mapping out what might be there. And they call that, in the metals world, an ore body. So, hey, we've drilled all these holes. We know there's an ore body here. Here's the plan on how we go get it. And then we've got to develop our plant, and we've got to bring power into the site, and we've got to get there. So we've got to develop transportation infrastructure. Then we have to develop the pit and strip the material away and plan for the reclamation. There's a lot of work that goes into just starting the mine from exploration, discovery to actual production. But this isn't just that. Usually that might be 5 to 10 years. Usually, though, there is permitting as well. In any developed nation, you'll need to go get permits from different regulatory bodies. And in the United States, it's a lot of regulatory bodies. And right now, there's a long list of great mining operations, potential mining operations that have completed the discovery, that have proved feasibility, that have already developed a lot of the mine infrastructure required for developing those resources, and are just sitting, waiting for the government to say, okay, you can do it. And some of these mines even had government approval, and then the government came in and just revoked the approval last minute. Some of them are Resolution Copper, the Pebble Project up in Alaska. There's New Range in Minnesota, Polymet. Let's see here. I want to get hold on. New Range Copper Nickel in Minnesota, which I had the fortune of visiting in July. Twin Metals in Minnesota. These are all remarkable potential operations with a remarkable amount of copper, nickel, critical minerals or metals our United States, our population needs. That is all just being held up by the government right now for what seems to be no good reasons. All these mines have very extensively demonstrated that we can do it that they can do it in a responsible manner. When it comes to the people in the community, when it comes to the environment, when it comes to the overall economy, and yet that's still not good enough, and they couldn't really tell you why. And there's a lot of other projects that are held up in this quagmire here. And so I'm talking about this because, again, this is, I think, one of the biggest threats to our national security. And it's not even about us versus anybody else. It's just the common sense that is, hey, if we need these metals and resources to live, we should probably, if we can, develop these metals and resources here in the United States, because then we don't have to rely on other people, which we learned during COVID is a precarious place to be. And then we can make sure we're doing it right. We can make sure we're doing it in a responsible fashion. We can make sure our economy is benefiting as a result, and we can make sure it's safe for the people doing it. So from that article, I then found some other pretty interesting resources here from, from mineralsmakelife.org. And this says, delays in the U.S. mine permitting process impair and discourage mining at home. Meanwhile, the demand for minerals to supply the defense, advanced energy, high-tech electronics, medical, and transportation industries is rising. So we have a huge demand for all of these minerals and resources, but we are completely shooting ourselves in the foot by not permitting anything. Mining companies accept that there will always be some element of delay during the development period and will build appropriate contingency and mitigation measures into their business plans. However, protracted delays are a real problem for the industry and by extension, the U.S. economy as a whole. A typical mining project loses more of 1/3 of its value as a result of bureaucratic delays in receiving the numerous permits needed to begin production. The higher costs and increased risk that often arise from a prolonged permitting process can cut the expected value of a mine in half before production even begins. And so this means a lot of mines in the United States, they should be economical, but they aren't. Or if they do go into production, the company's not paying for those costs. They're passed along to somebody else, which ends up being typically the end consumer. Mining is a long-term investment. From exploration to closure and site remediation, projects typically have a lifespan of several decades. Although geology and topography dictate where a deposit is located and how it is mined, economics determine whether the project proceeds or not. Even a large high-grade deposit will remain unmined if the revenue cost balance and timetable are not advantageous to the mine stakeholders. Despite being home to abundant mineral resources, the United States only accounts for 11% of worldwide spending on mineral exploration, and production is currently reliant on a population of mature mining projects. And so, as a result, again, of our permitting snafus, the global mining companies now are not exploring as much in the United States, because why would we go invest in a country that is uncertain when it comes to permitting, which is a terrible, terrible reputation to have. And so in the United States, the requirement for multiple permits and multiple agency involvement is the norm, as is the involvement of other stakeholders, including local indigenous groups, the general public, and non-governmental organizations. As a consequence, it takes on an average 7 to 10 years to secure the permits needed to commence operations in the United States. And to put that into perspective, in Canada and Australia, two countries with similarly stringent environmental regulations and just as developed, the average permitting period is 2 years. So Australia, Canada are prioritizing these permitting these projects because they know it's so important to their economy. The Australian economy, Canadian economy, they're much more resource driven than we are in the United States. We're not as resource driven, but we are certainly consuming far more resources than Canada and Australia. And so even though it's not driving as much of our economy, it is even more important compared to those countries because we have more people depending on it. So that's permitting, a little bit more background on that. And then I found another article from mineralsmakelife.org titled How to Win the Global Minerals Race. So here it says, global events have sent the price of mineral commodities soaring. This, combined with the growing demand for minerals, is exacerbating stressed supply chains and limited production capacity. The International Energy Agency predicts the energy sector's demand for minerals could grow 6 times by 2040. The U.S. has stood by idle while China and other countries have emerged as dominant producers of minerals needed for EV batteries, technology, and infrastructure. So this says the United States is beholden to China for minerals. China is the largest processor of copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, and rare earth elements, controlling 75% of lithium-ion battery production, 60% of cathode production, and 80% of anode production. Only 9 of the world's 142 lithium-ion battery megafactories are planned for in the US, while 107 are in China. And I go to these battery factories. I've been to some of these projects in the United States. They're the biggest development project in the United States. And yet we still depend on people and countries outside of our country to supply all of the raw materials for these plants. And so I can't sit there but to and help but to scratch my head and ask the question, where's all the material coming from? Cool, we can build this battery plant. And then what? And then what? And this isn't anything against China. I think what they've done is very, very clever in a lot of ways. Instead of investing in foreign wars like what we do, they've invested in infrastructure, not just in infrastructure and resources, not just in China, but elsewhere as well. And we can sit here and criticize it all day long, but it seems to me like that could be a winning strategy. And that's at least a strategy saying, we're first here. We need to make sure our people are good to go first and foremost before we do anything else. And it's frustrating to see other countries doing this. Again, politics aside, everything really aside, we're looking just at minerals and resources here. And our country is saying, nah, we're still going to keep consuming, but we're going to make developing all of this here in our country with our resources far, 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 far more difficult. Who loses at the end of the day? The people. The people of the country lose at the end of the day. And it is a scary, scary, scary place to be. In 2021, the United States imported more than 50% of 47 mineral commodities, 15 of which were critical minerals. Of those 47, the United States imported 100% of 17 minerals, 14 of which were critical. The U.S. is home to an estimated $6.2 trillion in minerals, but we had net imports of $90 billion worth of minerals in 2021 alone. So, the top extraction countries are Indonesia, Chile, the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, not Dominican Republic, different country, China, and then Australia. So copper for Chile, nickel for Indonesia, cobalt, DRC, rare earth, China, lithium, Australia, and then processing. China is almost the entire global supply and global processing supply for all of those. So not only is it, and this is something a lot of people don't talk about, not only are we hampering our ability to produce minerals and metals within the United States, but we have no ability to process them. So even if we're mining the copper in Arizona, for example, there's only 2 functional copper smelters in the United States. They're bringing a third one online again. One was mothballed. They're starting it back up. But even that can't even close to come close to smelting the amount of copper we're producing. So a lot of the copper then goes by truck in concentrate form, dried concentrate, put it in a truck, put it on boats, ship it to China so they can smelt it. And then it comes right back to the United States so it can be consumed. How does that make sense? How does that make sense for anybody? In the United States, we have 69 million metric tons of cobalt. 76% of consumption is imported. We have 340 million metric tons of nickel, but import about half of our nickel. We have 48 million metric tons of copper, but import about half of our copper. And then lithium, we have 750 million metric tons, but still import a large percentage of our lithium consumption. Some stalled projects, like I said, here's some more detail though. Twin Metals in Minnesota, 30 million pounds of cobalt available in the mine plan, but permitting process is currently stalled. Polymet, 170 million pounds of nickel available, but permitting process has been stalled since 2005. Resolution Copper, potential to produce 25% of U.S. copper consumption, permitting stalled since 2013. Lithium Americas, Thacker Pass, largest known lithium deposit in the United States, in development for more than a decade. So the solutions here, I like this. They don't just sit here and bitch about the problem. They actually say, here's what we can do to make sure the United States is good to go. And again, this is just like basic shit a country should do. This is a question we should ask. Hey, are we good to go? Are our people good to go with the basics? And if not, how do we get them good to go with the basics? How do we not depend on others for the basics of human life? This is so foundational and essential. And so their first suggestion is implement common sense permitting reforms. They're not saying they want no permitting. They want permitting. Mining wants to be regulated. They want to do it in a responsible way, but they don't want it to be completely unreasonable. So there are ways we can reform permitting to make it a far shorter amount of time while still making sure that mines are in the United States, the finest in the world. I think we can still set the gold standard while extracting the resources we need, and the mining industry does too. We can increase then domestic production and processing. We have all of these deposits that are ready to be developed, and we have the ability to go build some amazing things like these EV battery plants. We can build processing facilities very, very quickly. We just need the desire to. And if we have the desire to as a country, these foreign mining companies, processing companies are going to make the investments here in the United States and then pursue an all the above approach. Collaborate with people, seek long-term fixed contracts, invest in new technologies and human capital, develop people in the industry, become an innovation hub for smart mining practices that are cleaner, faster, and cheaper. So their argument is, hey, we have the opportunity to position America as a powerhouse in the minerals, critical minerals, resources production landscape. We have that opportunity. It's right here. We have everything we need to make it a reality. We just need the government on board. Does me saying all of this on a podcast make any difference at all? Probably not. However, I think it's something that we need to be talking about as a society. We are very distracted. This happened, that happened, this happened. Our lives, no matter what happens, depend upon resources. And right now, we are not developing the resources we have in the United States at our disposal so that we can benefit from those resources. And I think it should be a bipartisan deal. It should be a pro-human move to say, yeah, we probably should develop some of these resources so that our people are good to go. It hurts my brain that this is something that is controversial because the people that are against it are benefiting from all of this stuff like anybody else. They're not living in a hole somewhere. They're still living the same life, comfortable life that everybody else is living because of abundant resources. But the reality is a lot of those resources are coming from other places while we have them right here in America. So that's the message. Hopefully we can get some permitting reform. Hopefully we can develop more resources. Hopefully we can process more resources. It is I think a critical issue and something not to be overlooked. If you want me to dig into anything else, highlight anything else, bring anything to my attention, cover anything specifically, I would love to cover other topics. So send them our way, dirktalk@buildit.com. We would love to hear from you. And we'll see you in the next time. Stay great, everybody.